Welcome back to the Laura Dowling Experience podcast, where each week I bring you insightful and inspiring guests that will open your mind and empower your life. Before we get into today's episode, I would love to ask you for a little favour. If you like this podcast, and I know so many of you do, you could really help me out by giving it a nice rating, sharing it with your friends, and subscribing to the podcast. It may not seem like a big deal, but actually this really helps to keep the podcast high up in the charts, and that means that I can keep bringing you brilliant guests who are insightful, inspiring, and full of wisdom that we can all learn from. Thanks a million. Now let's get to it. This podcast episode is brought to you by the Brillo Cleaning Collection. Spring clean? Well, I'm not losing a whole weekend to that. I'm all about the quick wins. Open the windows, freshen things up, tackle the jobs winter left behind. And everyone in the house gets drafted in. There are no passengers. And that's why I'm loving Brillo's new cleaning collection. It's built for the toughest household tasks and makes the deep clean feel, well, wait for it, easy. Oven grime, shower limescale, kitchen grease, even drains, nothing turns into a big dramatic project. So this spring, you make the mess and let Brillo get the job done. Always follow preparation and usage instructions. Available nationwide. As a pharmacist and as someone who speaks to women every single day about intimate health, I see firsthand how common vaginal dryness and irritation are, and how much they impact quality of life. That is exactly why I created Fabu Hello Healing. These are non-hormonal vaginal moisturising ovules designed to treat dryness, soothe irritation and support the natural pH of the vagina. They form a protective layer over the vaginal lining, helping to restore comfort and elasticity. They're ideal during peri and menopause, post-cancer treatment, during breastfeeding or after intimacy when the tissues feel depleted. Fabu Hello Healing is gentle, menopause-friendly and designed to protect and restore the delicate vaginal mucosa. You can find it now on fabuwellness.com and in pharmacies and health food stores nationwide. Martina, it is so good to have you on the podcast today. Delighted to have you on to speak about occupational health and your company Seating Matters and how you're helping older people stay well and live better in whatever way they live, whether it be at home or in nursing homes. So can you tell me a little bit about what you do first of all, and then we'll go back to the start.
Okay. Well, thank you, Laura, for having me. It's I feel like I'm in the presence of a celebrity here after your appearance on the TV on the weekend. I'm an occupational therapist, and way back in the year 2000, I was working for the Health Trust in Northern Ireland, one of the health trusts, and I was getting a bit frustrated just working. I'm not a very good employee, so I saw an opportunity where there was a lot of people that wanted to purchase pieces of equipment to meet their own needs, like beds and chairs and wheelchairs, because they didn't want to wait on the health service to provide them. But they were going out to buy these from people who were not giving them any advice, and they were buying large pieces of equipment that was wrong for them, was too expensive and wasn't meeting their needs. For example, one day as an OT, when I was still employed, I went into someone's home and I saw sitting in the kitchen this large scooter. And I said to the lady, "What's this for?" And she says, "Oh, I bought that." But she says, "I can't get it out the back door." She had steps at the back door and she had bought this £3,000 scooter and she couldn't use it. Like, whoever sold that to her just wanted to make a sale. Yeah. And I thought, there's an opportunity here for me as an occupational therapist to set up privately and give these people a proper assessment of need, advise them what to buy, where to buy it, and they were getting the right piece of equipment. So that's what I did. But then what I found then, after doing this for a few months, I went to care homes just to promote what I was doing, because in those days, back in the year 2000, there was no social media. So it was all like boots on the ground, as it were.
Yeah.
So I went into care homes, and the thing that was kept coming up all the time was how people were sitting. And the nursing staff would say, "Do you see that lady? She's sliding off the chair all the time and we can't really work with her." So I really started to look into seating and how people were sitting in care homes, and it was devastating. And I decided I was going to forget about all other equipment. I was just going to focus and concentrate on seating and posture and how it was impacting, especially older people. Now, we provide solutions for children again, right across the board, right from 0 to 90. But we focused a lot on the older people.
Can you just tell us, first and foremost, what an occupational therapist does?
So that's a good question. And I've written a book called The Power of OT because not many people know what occupational therapy is. But occupational therapists are a member of like a rehabilitation team. And we look at people after they've had a traumatic experience, maybe a stroke, a brain injury, and we look at see how can we get them back living as independently as possible and finding out what matters to them. Occupational therapists always ask the question, what matters to you, not what's the matter with you. So we want to find out what's important to that person after a stroke, for example, how they want to get back, what's important in their life. And we find ways for them to get back to living a normal life through maybe equipment, giving them special equipment, maybe through adapting their home or giving them techniques in how to do an everyday task that they have forgotten or unable to do anymore. So it's really a really crucial member of the rehabilitation team. So we look at equipment and, for example, a chair. A chair enables people to sit properly. When they sit properly, they're breathing properly. That means there's more oxygen going through their body. And when there's more oxygen, that means their tissues are more alive. That means they're not getting recurrent chest infections. And when there's more oxygen going through the body, they're more alert and orientated. And when someone's sitting in a chair falling to the side, they can't even see what's around them, and their whole interaction with their environment. I went in to see a lady one time for a chair, and when I went into the care home, they said, it's that lady in the corner. And all I could see was a little bald patch on the top of her head because she was sitting like this. Now, what did she see? She saw her feet all day long. And I went in and assessed her and we got her a chair that met her needs. We tilted her back. I would always leave the chair for the person to try out. It's like fitting on a pair of shoes. One size doesn't fit everyone. So I left the chair. And when I went back in the next day, there she was sitting and I saw her eyes. I just made eye contact with her right away. And for no other reason, that chair was important to her, just for that eye contact. Not to mention that it reduced the risk of her falling out of the chair. It reduced the risk of a pressure injury. It improved her function. It did so many things. And this is the thing that I'm passionate about, not about telling people how to do assessments, but tell them why they need to be doing this. Why do they need to be providing the right equipment for these people?
And this equipment in seating matters are for people that have poor mobility and will be seating for most of the day, is that right?
Yes, okay. Long periods of time. This is for people who have no longer the ability to stand and who have to sit for long periods of time.
Okay, and how do you assess someone then and make a chair? They're bespoke per individual, are they? Or are they standard and come off a production line?
A bit of both. All our chairs are adjustable in that they can be adjusted to meet the individual needs of the client. So they don't have to be bespoke. I could bring a chair in here and put you in it and then bring somebody that's 6'5" and, 20 stone in the same chair by moving the chair.
Okay.
But there are times when we do have to make a bespoke chair because there may be some very specific individual need for that person. So we do bespoke, but a lot of our chairs are multi-adjustable. So for a care home environment, for example, if they purchase a chair and someone either leaves the care home or passes on, they can reuse that chair.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And do you know what I'm thinking of? Because I would have seen it so many times in the pharmacy, as women get older and their backs get a little bit more hunched and that. Do you take into account that?
That's what we would call a kyphosis, a kyphotic spine. And absolutely. And that's something, good seating helps to reduce the likelihood of that happening. If that's something that's maybe happening, if they're sitting better, that would maybe slow down that deterioration or maybe accommodate it within the chair. So we would, if it was something that was fixed, we would accommodate that within the chair, because one of the keys of sitting is that all of the body should be in contact with the chair. And if you went into a care home, if you looked at somebody sitting in a chair, maybe half their body is not even being supported. So it's really important for someone that had a kyphosis of the spine, that chair supports that kyphosis or helps to reduce it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And do people then, are they strapped into the chair sometimes if they slide down, or should they be able to be sitting in the chair comfortably?
They should be able to sit.
Okay.
Strapping would be seen as a restraint. Okay. There are times when you're moving the chair, you would want to maybe put a strap on, but in the majority of cases where the chair fits properly, they shouldn't need to be strapped on. Absolutely not.
And when did you start this whole process? Because I know that you were going in and you were seeing this, but then to go from recommending some chairs to actually going and making your own, you sound like Superwoman.
Well, I got a lot of help with this now. It wasn't as a family business.
Okay.
So I'm the occupational therapist and I'm still the clinical person within the business. So I started to look around other manufacturers and see where could I get a chair that would meet the needs of an individual that I had just done an assessment for. And then the chair would arrive in, and my husband was an engineer. He was one of those people that would turn his hand to anything. And I would say to him, that chair's not exactly right. The back needs to be a little bit higher. That leg rest needs to be a bit lower, and I need X, Y, and Z. So he would alter the chair and adjust the chair and modify it to suit the needs of the person that I had just assessed. So we kept doing this over and over again. And like, he had a full-time job, he had a business, and this was something that I had him sort of dragged into. Can you have a look at this chair? And then one day he said, why don't we just start from scratch and make our own chairs? And I says, no, we can't do that, because what if somebody falls off the chair? What if we get sued? There's so much behind all that. He says, you're modifying those chairs so much, you'll probably be sued anyway. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So after a little bit of encouragement, I have to say from him, that we decided, well, let's start from scratch. I knew clinically what I needed, and he knew from an engineering perspective what could be done. And then I have 3 sons and a daughter, and my sons were just getting to an age where they were deciding what they were going to do. They were still at school, and they got really interested in the whole project.
And did you build your own factory from the very start?
Well, we had a part of the factory because my husband was construction, and he always had his own premises.
I'm telling you, these bloody engineers, they can turn their hand to anything, can't they? Especially so they see a problem and just make a solution, don't they?
Yeah. Well, he had done that. James, my husband, had done that always in his own work. If he found a problem, he just found a solution there, and then he didn't go looking for it. And that's why when he saw the chair, he thought, let's just do this ourselves. So he had a large shed that he had built for his own use, and we took it over. And then we took over a bit more, and then we added another bit, and we're way out in the middle of nowhere. You'll have to come up and see us sometime.
I do. I have to. Martin. So just, sorry, by way of context, anyone that's listening, I met Martina's son, Martin, on the Entrepreneur of the Year programme over in Japan. And he can talk for Ireland, can't he?
Absolutely.
Or Northern Ireland, as the case might be. And I asked Martin to come on the podcast. He goes, do you know who'd be better? My mum, because she is the one that started the whole thing. So
maybe he was scared of you asking too many intimate questions about women's health.
You know what, Martin would be well able for me.
He would.
He's the type of lad. He'd be well able for me.
He would be well able for you.
Might get him on again. And that's so interesting that the boys all took an interest from the get-go.
They did from the very, very start.
And did any of them do engineering then, or
they didn't even finish? They just left school and started into the business.
See, I find this so funny. Tell them the story about Martin not doing his A-levels.
So there's a couple of stories. So first of all, I have 3 sons and a daughter. I always have to remember Louise. She's 10 years younger than Martin, so that's why she wasn't sort of involved in the seating at the beginning. So when we started the seating, Jonathan was about 17, Ryan was 16, and Martin was about 15. And they really got a lot of interest in what we were doing, the engineering side of it. And Jonathan is a person who's really very easy to talk to. He loves sales. He loves talking to people. So he very easily moved into sales. That was him. Ryan is the guy that he is the engineer, the person who wants to make solutions. He is his father, really. Yeah. And then we have Martin, and Martin is the one that wants to get the research done. He wants to get everything, the plans drawn up. He wants to get the designs right. So he was the dot the I, cross the T, make sure legally we were right. And he was only at school for this. So there's 2 stories. The first story was he contacted a company called Linac. Now Linac they make the motors they're well known around the world. They make the best motors for beds and chairs. And we contacted Linac to come out to see these prototypes, and they wanted to use Linac chairs. So this guy from Linac arrived at our office, and they asked to speak to Martin because he had a meeting with him, and he says he's not home from school yet. That's a true story. And the bus pulled up at the gate, and Martin jumped off. The meeting was at 4:00, and the guy stood there, and we meet this person all the time now at shows, and then he'll say, I really thought it was somebody was having me on, like I thought this was a joke. And this guy, he's still not home from school, so Martin comes in the school tie, and he sits down and he has a meeting with Lanark to look at the proper motors, which were still one of their best customers yet.
Yeah.
We're still very much lined with Lanark. So that was the first story. And the second, then that was early on. And then when the business started to go and we started to get chairs out, Martin came to me one day and he was head boy at the local grammar school, which is a big accolade in itself, a large Limavady grammar. And he was the head boy. And he came to me one day and he said, when I do my A-levels, when I finish my A-levels, I'm not going on to university. And I said, why? He says, because I really want to get right onto the chairs. He says, I'm going to do that anyway. And I says, so why are you doing the A-levels? He says, to prove that I can get 4 A's. Well, I says, Martin, you've proved that all your life. Like from this size, he's always got A's, been first in his class all his life. That's just the way he is. I says, you don't have to stay at school to prove that you can get 4 A's. Why don't you just leave?
What age was he?
He was 17. And he got a suit on the next day and he went on to the headmaster and he told him he was leaving. And the headmaster got up and shook his hand and wished him all the best because he knew he had a plan. He wasn't just one of these guys that was giving up.
Yeah.
And he's been back at that school. He's spoken to the he's become like almost...
Bit of a legend.
It's the only year, whatever year that was, 2008 or 9, is the only year that there's 2 head boys at that school. Okay. And the history of the school, there's names on a big board, 2 names.
The poor runner-up. But I think that confidence that you had in him as his mum, just saying, sure, why didn't you just give up? Because he was only a few months away from doing the A-levels as well.
He left away in January and he should have been doing them that sort of May or June. But I didn't see... Well, maybe it wasn't the right advice, but he hasn't regretted it.
No,
anyway.
Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah.
I just think it was such an interesting story and it really is a family business then.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then how do people... So do you go and assess someone and then they decide whether or not to get it and then they get funding from... Is it the NHS or do you provide chairs for the HSE as well?
Oh, absolutely. We provide chairs worldwide. So we have, like the HSE, we would be one of the top brands down here in Ireland as well as in the UK, Australia, America. We're just sending somebody now to Munich, to Germany that we have. So the way it works, the funding comes either person can buy the chair privately, but mostly it's coming through NHS or HSE contracts, where occupational therapists or care homes or nurses that see the need, and we're on contracts throughout the UK and Ireland.
And will the HSE and NHS part fund a chair or will they fully fund it?
If they decide that that's what the client needs, they fully fund the chair.
Okay.
In care homes, some care homes will purchase, sometimes it's family, sometimes it's maybe a charitable thing, fundraising, that sort of thing. And we also rent chairs, which is really important because maybe somebody at end of life, maybe just need that comfort, those last, I have this lovely story and it broke my heart. I was at a conference last week over in Liverpool where we do training for OTs all around the country. And this was telling a story that he brought a chair out to someone who had he was terminally ill, he was in a hospice, and he brought a chair out and he put him in the Sorrento chair, he got him comfortable and he wheeled him out onto the patio, and when he had him out on the patio, the man started to cry, and our person says, oh my goodness, did I do something wrong, or are you sore, did it hurt you? He says, no. He says, I was going to die in bed. He says, I thought I'd never be outside again. He says, I thought. And the fact that he was able to get on that chair and go out and sit comfortably on the patio just for an hour, maybe in the day, in the last few weeks of his life, like that's so important to people. Yeah. So that's why we rent a chair. Like we'd rent a chair, and sometimes we just give them a chair. Yeah. It's not about...
So are they wheelchairs then?
They're chairs on wheels.
They're chairs, not wheelchairs, but chairs on wheels.
Chairs on wheels.
They're not designed to be travelling around in?
No,
okay.
They're not designed for transport.
Okay.
But they're designed to be easy manoeuvrable from room to room or down a corridor or that sort of thing, and they tilt and they recline and they comfort and posture and everything. Yeah.
And then in terms of bed sores or chair sores, as the case might be, how do we help to prevent those? Because people that are sitting all day as well can become prone to them around their buttocks and their legs and that. So.
Well, that's a huge problem. And the billions of pounds every year that is spent on the treatment of pressure, we call them pressure injuries, because bed sores is sort of an older terminology because you think it just happens in bed. But actually an injury, like we call it a pressure injury, can happen anywhere on any piece of equipment, so it has to be 24-hour care when you're looking at what surface is this person sitting on for 24 hours a day. So it could be the bed, the chair, the shared chair, the wheelchair, whatever. And our chairs are designed, and we've done a lot of clinical research and a lot of trials, and they've been designed to help reduce the risk of pressure injuries. And how do you do that? You do that by having regular change of position. It's when a pressure injury happens when somebody sits for a prolonged period of time without moving. And it's the pressure between the surface and the bony prominence. So usually the pressure injury happens over a bony prominence, and when they're sitting for a prolonged period of time in the same position. So our chairs are designed to tilt and move so that you're redistributing pressure. So you're taking the pressure off the bony part and you're putting it onto the back or whatever. So you're helping to reoxygenate the tissues. And it only takes about 2.5 to 3 minutes for the tissue to reoxygenate. And then that helps to heal the skin or reduce the risk of a pressure injury. So they are so important for that. And most of the pressure injuries, I think it's 75% of pressure injuries occur in the coccyx and sacral area. And it's usually contributed to the way they're sitting in horrible chairs in care homes and hospitals.
How much do your chairs cost?
Anywhere between £1,000 and £3,000. Depend on the complexity of them and how much, support they need and that sort of thing. So they do range, and they're not a cheap thing. But the way I look at it is, it's the price of a holiday, and that person's going to be in that chair. The chairs are guaranteed. Like, we have chairs that are out in the market for 12 years and still functioning properly. It's a one-off purchase, or you can, as I say, you can rent them out. But it's just the price of a holiday.
And also, I suppose, when you think about the amount of time someone will spend in it, and then also the amount of money that health boards or trusts spend on relieving people that might have those pressure sores or that are in the chair all the time. Like you're talking about that woman that was just looking at her feet all the time.
Yeah, everybody wants to know nowadays about return on investment, So if I'm going to buy 20 of these chairs or 100 of these chairs, like, how am I going to get the money back? Health boards want to know that. We have done a lot of audits, clinical audits. We have a lot of evidence to show how providing the right seating can reduce the burden, the financial burden for care homes and for hospitals, because we provide into acute hospitals as well, which is a big area that we've just more or less got into in the last few years to get people discharged earlier. After 10 days of bed rest, that takes a person 10 years to rehabilitate properly. If you put someone, it's called deconditioning. So you leave someone in bed for 10 full days without getting them out to sit in a chair. It takes them 10 years to recover from that.
What?
Because deconditioning, well, that it's somebody, say, in an ICU or somebody in a hospital. And there's a girl in America, and she really advocates getting people out of bed, like an ICU, as early as possible. And we have chairs that are designed to get people out of bed as early as, possible. Because
so just to go from lying flat in a bed to sitting up in a chair is just so much better for you.
Oh, absolutely. And the earlier you can do that, we have evidence to show that they're discharged, they go to the step-down unit quicker and they get discharged quicker. And also, a lot of the trials that we did, the audits that we have done, we've shown that people that are sitting out properly in a proper chair, they get discharged much earlier out of hospital, and they sit out of bed much longer. People, if the chair isn't right, people want to go back to bed. They get tired, they get fatigued because they're not getting the support, and they want back to bed, or they won't get out of bed. But if you put them out in the proper chair, they sit out for much longer, so they can do a lot more out-of-bed activities, out-of-bed opportunities the Americans talk about. But sometimes...
And it's not the same as just sitting up in the bed?
No, it's not. It's not the same. Because sitting up in the bed actually can be quite detrimental to your pressure. So when someone's in bed, the head of the bed shouldn't be past 30 degrees for any extended period of time, because if you bring the bed up straighter than that, it causes pressure on the sacrum and can be actually devastating to them. So no, sitting up in bed isn't the same thing. And also it's the fact that you're out of bed. Like when you're in bed, you're like a patient. You are in the sick role. You expect people to do things for you. Put someone out in a chair and leave the cup of tea in a position where they can reach it. They're then feeding themselves. They're then taking control of themselves. And as an OT, that's what we want. We want people to be independent. If you saw some of our before and after photographs, we have a lady sitting slumped in a chair and the cup of tea over there. She was never, ever going to be able to reach it. You put her in a proper chair, you sit her up, you put the tray beside her, she's able to feed herself. And that's what occupational therapists want. We're there to try to encourage people to become more independent and facilitate them to be able to do things for themselves. So that's why occupational therapy and seating and posture is so interlinked.
Goodness, it is. You'd never even think of those things.
This is all new for you.
Yeah, no, it is. It is, absolutely. And actually, the whole job and role that OTs play, I didn't really know what they did, I'll be really honest. Because I would have known about physiotherapy and physical therapy and all that. But OT is very much an integral part of that team, because it's making people and helping people live the lives that they want to in just normal circumstances.
Yes.
Yeah.
We do what we call activity analysis. So we look at the activity the person needs to be able to do. So they need to be able to get out of their chair, walk to the kitchen and make a cup of tea. Now you think, the OT, some people might say, the OT has the wee patient down, they're making a wee cup of tea. They're not just making a wee cup of tea in the kitchen. She's watching how that person was able to get out of that chair safely and independently. Was the chair right? How they walked, was there any hazards on the way to get to the kitchen? When they got to the kitchen, did they have the balance did they have the cognitive ability to know when the kettle was boiled? Were they able to reach for the whatever it was, was everything in the place where it needed to be for them to reach? Was it convenient? Was it safe? So the OT might have a patient down after a stroke doing a cup of tea, but it's not just, they're having a wee cup of tea. She's analysing the activity. She's analysing how the person does that so she can intervene, or he. Some OTs are boys, not so many, but some. They can intervene to say, this is how you should do it. This is an energy conservation. They work with people that have low energy as well. So there's so much more to occupational therapy than people realise.
Yeah, there is. And then would your main clients be older people, or do you see an awful lot of young people that may be recovering from stroke or things like that, or
brain injury?
Yeah.
Like I have a friend at the minute, Ciara Duffy, she's an OT that has gone out on her own, and she's working with a client at the minute that has FND, functional neurological disorder, and that client's main problem is, one of the problems is so fatigued. She's a young mother with children, and Ciara has been so instrumental in helping that person get back to becoming a mother and looking after her family and her home. So it's not just older people. I talk a lot about older people because it's sort of my passion. But I mean, we look after children and all age groups.
God. And we were talking earlier before we came in about a bariatric patient of yours. Mm-hmm. And I'd love to actually talk about that a little bit, because you were saying, well, actually just tell the story about her, but the fact that she was ill.
So this lady, and I do a podcast as well, and I actually interviewed her on my podcast yesterday before I came down here. So, and she won't mind because she's an advocate for people of size. She likes to call people of size. And this lady is quite large, and she's not ashamed to say it, and she's not ashamed of her weight. She says she's not an advocate for people being fat. In fact, she has lost weight, but she's an advocate for people of size being treated like, she talks about equity. That they're getting the right equipment, that they're being treated with equity, not equality, because the same thing that would suit you does not suit someone of a larger size. But she was telling me as well about how she feels that she's treated. She says someone that's fat, they say fat and lazy, fat and stupid, fat and
slovenly.
That's the terminology people, or that's the way people think. And she was telling us a story that she was very ill one day at home, and she had a lot of pain on her side. She rang her GP, and the GP says, I think you've got appendicitis, you need to go directly to A&E. And she says, I got up, my partner, I got the keys of the car to take me to A&E, and I went into the bathroom. She says, I had a shower, I put on my makeup, I done my hair, and my partner was out rattling the keys. He said, well, what are you doing? Come on. She says, I needed to present myself with my full makeup, with my hair, in order to be taken seriously as a larger person. Because if I went in there not looking shabby or looking tired, I didn't get the treatment that I was judged on how I looked. and that's how she has felt. And what her role and her passion at the minute now is to speak out on behalf of people of size and say, like, we are somebody's mother, somebody's sister, somebody, you know, this particular lady is a full-time job. She drives her own car, she has her own home. You know, she's an independent lady. There are barriers that her weight cause, but she says she just overcomes them day by day. But I think it's the attitude that we as healthcare professionals have maybe towards someone.
It can be an inherent bias, can't it? Mm-hmm. That can be hard to shift. But do you find that there's that bias almost towards older people as well that need the kind of help that you're suggesting with the chairs and things like that? Is it almost like I know we talk about being kind to older people, and but it does seem that, say, for instance, in other countries in the East, I'm thinking about Thailand when I visited there 20 odd years ago, in India, people live with their older people. Yeah. They're not put into care homes as often. But it's a different family setup there too. Like, families live together and that. But do you think that we could do better by older people that are not living as independent lives?
Oh, absolutely. And like, my purpose in life, for whatever length I've left, will be just to go and talk about the importance of treating older people, especially older people in care, people with dementia. Like, we don't understand people with dementia, what they're going through. And we think, we talk about people with dementia, oh, they're irritable, they're aggressive, they're difficult to manage, they're uncooperative. These are words that healthcare professionals use when they're talking about, when they're describing someone with dementia. But that person with dementia, they've lost their proprioceptive and their sensory skills. So they don't know where their body is in space. Like, they've lost the ability to know, like, I'm sitting here, my 2 feet's in the ground, and I can feel my body, I can feel the arms of the chair. You have the sensation of where you're sitting. Someone with dementia doesn't have that. They lose that because of the diminished in the brain. So when you move them and you put them on a sling and you swing them and they squeal, you know, that's not them being uncooperative or aggressive, and that's because it just unnerves them so much. And if you ever look at some of the dementia, you see them, do you ever see they're sitting like this, their hands are closed in?
For our listeners, Martina's clenching her fists and holding her arms in towards her chest.
And what they're trying to do, they're trying to feel their hands. You know, they're trying to get proprioceptive and sensory feedback.
But they can't get that, is that
That's
right?
how they get it, by clenching their fists, you know.
And they're not getting that normally because of whatever way their brain's talking to them.
Yeah. I mean, I could talk all day about dementia, and I'm not an expert on it.
No, but I'm happy for you to talk a little bit more about it, because actually it's something that really interests me, because I did see it a lot in the pharmacy as well. Mm-hmm. Just, it's almost like they're othered as well. And it's...
Yeah. And one of the other things is they lose the sensation on the plantar aspects of their body. So that is their back, the back of their legs, the soles of their feet and the palms of their hands. They lose the sensation on that part of their body. So that's why they clench their fists, like I'm showing you now. They clench the fists to try to reinforce some sort of sensation. So when we seat those people on a chair, that gives them a bit of sensory feedback. So in order to do that, we need to give them a chair that's loading the body correctly, that's giving them sensory feedback. You can just see their body relaxing into that chair. And this is not me just trying to promote seating. This is true. We've seen it over and over and over again.
How do you make the chair that provides the sensory feedback? How do they do that? Well, without going into all the engineering.
Well, really just by providing the chair that supports the full body.
Okay.
Supports the legs, supports the back, supports the head, supports the feet, making sure their feet, like your feet take 1/3 of your body weight. And often, and I'm sure anybody listening to this that has ever been in a care home, you'll see people sitting with their feet dangling. And they need to have their feet on the floor or on a foot plate so that they're getting that sensory feedback. They need the arms of the chair close so that they can feel the arms of the chair. People are sitting in chairs that are far too wide, so they sit like this and they fall to the side. So it's really just looking at the person and loading the body on the chair. That gives the sensory feedback.
I didn't know any of this about this proprioceptive feedback with people with dementia. I knew nothing. All I thought was it was to do with memory.
No. There's so much more to it. We don't know enough about it and we don't understand it enough. Other countries are much ahead of us with regard to this, but we're doing our bit anyway, because every time we do a training, we have a girl, Kirsty O'Connor, she's actually married now, so I need to remember her other name, but she's Kirsty anyway, she's our OT, and she is really an advocate for people with dementia, and that's one of her passions, and she talks very eloquently about it and very clinically about it as well. So there's loads of information out there. You can Seaton Matters has loads of information on how to look after someone with dementia.
And the fact that if they're not getting feedback about where they are in space or where they are when they're sitting, and that can be so discombobulating, as well as them being sometimes not aware of their surroundings and that. So there's so much more to it.
Yeah. And how you move someone, like two people going in and lifting someone, like somebody's at this arm and somebody's at that arm, that disorientates them as well. So we talk about proportionate care. Maybe one person doing the work with them, and the type of sling you put on and all the thing around moving and handling, this all needs to be considered for people with dementia as well.
And when you're talking about a sling, is that the sling that they go into to be moved?
To be lifted up on a hoist or a patient lifter.
And do you have any idea about the percentage of chairs that in nursing homes currently that aren't fit for purpose?
90.
Really? And are you providing the other 10% then?
Well, we probably are. Well, yes, in the north of Ireland, like I would say, Seaton Matters chairs would be the main chair that you would see in and about. But there are other companies now, not to say there are other competitors out there. But 90% of patients are sitting in the wrong chairs, poor chairs. We done an audit there recently, and those were the sort of figures. It was mad how few good chairs, and yet they're in a bed that's cost them thousands. They're in a profiling bed and a really good mattress,
but the air's been puffed through the mattress sometimes as well. Because
so the money's been spent on the bed and the mattress, but they're lifting people out and putting them on a chair that's just totally inappropriate. And our Jonathan came up with this. He says, like, the diagnosis doesn't change from bed to chair. There's still somebody with a stroke or dementia in the bed, on the chair. So the chair is an area that really has been neglected.
And I would imagine then that if they're not sitting properly in the chair, that even swallowing food and it going down the esophagus would take longer or be uncomfortable.
More prone to choking.
Yeah.
The speech and language therapists love it when we go in and do a proper seating assessment and get somebody sitting upright. Like, we would work with speech and language therapists because they're all involved with feeding. So yes, it helps their feeding, their swallow, their respiration, their digestion, their elimination. It also helps people get recurrent urinary tract infections.
Oh, don't talk to me about that. Jesus,
and a lot of the time that is where the pelvis is tilted forward in the chair. And if the pelvis is tilted forward, it impedes the flow of urine out of the bladder, which can cause a backflow of urine. So sitting wrongly in a chair can actually cause recurrent urinary tract infections. These are things people don't think about. They think of the big things. Pressure injuries is a huge thing. Falls is another thing. And just dignity as well. Dignity.
Of course. So on a day-to-day basis and the time that you spend in the company, are you full-time in the company now working, or do you just go in and wag your finger and tell the boys to work harder? Go for coffee with your daughter?
I don't have anything really to do with the management of the company anymore. We have a board. We're part of a larger group called the Tierco Group. So we have manufacturing, we have healthcare, we've got investments and that. So the boys have taken this, all my boys, and they're in their 30s, but I still call them the boys. They've taken this to another level. So for the management of the company now, I don't have anything really to do with that at all.
And are you happy enough with that?
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
Did you manage it for a while, or was it always?
Well, when I set up at the beginning, like in the year 2000 up until 2008, it was just me, and my husband was a director, but he had his own business, so it was just me. And then after we set up the manufacturing end of the business, we started to actually make the chairs. That's when my sons got involved. And at a very early stage, my husband said, let them take over. For he said, let them take the lead, because you won't have to ever go to get them out of bed in the morning. That was the way he looked at it.
Intelligent man.
If they're working for you, he says they'll think they're working for their mother, working for their father. Make them in charge. So they've been in directors of this from day one. I'm quite happy as long as clinically everything has been done right, and as long as the culture of the company is so important to us. Like the first time that my son said they were bringing on salespeople, I just said no. We're not bringing on salespeople because occupational therapists don't like salesmen. I'm an OT, I know. We don't want to be sold to.
Yeah.
We don't want to be sold to. Nurses don't want to be sold to.
No.
But so I said, no, we can't bring on salespeople. So we brought on people and I trained them up at the beginning, and there's some of them are still with us 10, 12 years later. And we called them seating specialists. And the first thing they had to do, they had to learn everything they needed to learn about seating and everything I've been talking about today, but we put them through their P's and Q's so that they were going out. And the most important thing was that they were providing a solution for the patient, that they weren't out to sell a chair. And that is the way that I've always wanted it. And everybody that works with Seating Matters, that's the way they are. They're out to provide a solution, not to sell a chair. Now, if we found that their culture or their attitude wasn't right, we would bring them in and we'd talk to them, and we've had to let people go that were just salesmen. We did. We're not in it just to sell chairs. And when one day I spoke and I says, I never sold a chair in my life. And I said it, meaning it. And what I meant was, I went out, I saw the patient, and I got something that met their needs. There was one example. I went into a care home one day to see someone in Northern Ireland, and I walked in with my assessment form, and the daughter was there for this older woman, and I sat down and I started to ask the questions, examined her and looked at her posture and everything. What does she want from the chair? What was her goals for the chair? Always talk about, what is your goals? What do you want this chair to be able to do? And I talked about all that, and I said, so I'm going to go out now and bring in a chair that I think might meet your needs. And the daughter says to me, that's a different attitude from the person we had here yesterday. And they had another company on the day before, and he arrived with a chair, and he wheeled the chair down the corridor into the person's room and says, so here we've got whatever, call it the whatever.
The PC 500 turbo chair.
And it tilts and it does this and it moves there and it moves there and it has wheels on it, and you can wheel it up the corridor, you can go into the day room and all. She says, my mother doesn't want to leave this room. My mother's a very private woman. She doesn't care there's wheels in the chair. And all he was focused on was the chair and what the chair could do. He never said, like, what do you need or what do you want with the chair? Whereas we don't arrive at somebody's home with a chair. Unless an OT has been out, has done the assessment, and she'll ring us, because we've got a really good relationship with most OTs now, and they'll ring up and they'll say, can you bring me out to Sorrento? No, because she knows the chair that she needs for her patient, because she's been out, she's done the assessment, and she'll ring up one of her guys and she'll say, can you meet me at the house with the Sorrento? Well, in that case, you do arrive with a chair because the OT. But if we're doing like a private assessment, or we're the first person on site, we'll go in and find out all that information and then try to work out what chair suits them.
How many different chairs do you have?
About 12 for, different ones for, depending on the condition, different chairs for different people. And that's what the lady yesterday, the lady of size, they said to me, she says, they shouldn't say this piece of equipment, you don't really suit that piece of equipment. You should say that piece of equipment doesn't really suit you. That people are blaming the bariatric. When somebody larger goes in, they'll say, you don't fit in that chair. But they should say, this chair doesn't fit you. This bed doesn't suit you. Turn it around the other way, which is what we do. We go and we try to make the chair to fit the person, not the person fit the chair. So
do you make chairs that will fit bariatric patients as well? Okay.
We're actually have one now. It's going to be coming out soon, and it's 1,000 pound weight, which is about 70 stone.
Oh, so it fits that size.
It fits somebody with about 70 stone. Okay. At the minute, I think, what is our weight limit? Maybe 35, 40. Store. I can't even remember what our upper weight limit is at the minute, but we have one coming out now. And it's not that we'll be selling hundreds of them, but you need to be able to meet the needs of that person.
Of course.
Even it's only 10 chairs in a year. Yeah. That's 10 people that are no longer lying in bed because we have provided a solution for them. And it's actually in the testing at the minute. So it'll be out in the next few months.
Can you tell me a little bit about the lean manufacturing element of things, or do I have to get one of the lads down to talk about that? I find it very interesting because I know that your son Martin went to Japan to learn how they did this lean manufacturing. Yeah. I think he told me he visited the Toyota factory or something like that.
That's right.
But what does it mean?
Right, first of all, it was Ryan, the son number 2. He's the second, the middle son. He really discovered it himself because he was running the manufacturing and he was under pressure. Things were going wrong. Things were going out late. Things were going out with mistakes. And he went home one day and he thought there must be an easier way to run this manufacturing business. And he Googled and searched and he found this called 2-second lean. And he started to look into it and he discovered then that Japan, they ran this lean manufacturing, or the Toyota way it's called. So he went to Japan, my sons went to Japan and they saw how to run a manufacturing plant. It's more about the culture. It's a culture of continuous improvement. And the biggest thing about it is the one word that I would say sums up lean is respect. It's respect for your product, respect for the people that are making the product, the person beside you that's making the product, respect for the person who's going to be sitting in that product. So, and respect for the materials that you're using. So it's all about respect. It's all about a culture of respect. And so therefore, if you respect the person that's going to be using that chair, you're going to make sure that chair doesn't go out with faults. You know, you're going to make sure that it's made the way they need it. If you are respecting the person next to you, you're not going to waste their time. So it's all about eliminating waste, reducing waste. It's about making continuous improvement so that people, that their work environment is less struggle. It's a nicer place to work because they're not under pressure. So, for example, we used to make a load of arms of chairs and then a lot of cushions and a lot of backs. And then at the end of the week, we would rush round and try and get 15 chairs all put together to get them out for Friday. But so everybody was running around at the end of the week, really busy, trying to meet this target. We have to get 15 chairs out at the end of the week. But now what we do is a thing called tack time. And tack time means the heartbeat of the company. So we have every 20 minutes, we produce a chair. So this person does his bit for 20 minutes, passes it on to the lady here and so on. They pass it on. Every 20 minutes, that chair moves around the factory. And at the end of 20 minutes, we have a chair ready. Then the next chair. So at the end, every day, it's called one piece flow. Every day, there's 4 or 5 chairs started and completed. So by Friday, everybody goes home at 2:00. Nobody's under pressure. It's to reduce the stress, the burden of work for your people, and to reduce faults and mistakes. Because when people are under pressure, that's when they make mistakes. Whereas if you've got tack time going around the factory, that means that there's flow. And everything's flowing easily. And there's checks and balances in place. That's a very brief outline, but lean is a lot more.
That's very interesting. Mm-hmm. But you mentioned there it goes to the sewer. Is someone hand sewing?
Everything's hand done.
And would it not be cheaper for you to get it done in a factory with robots?
China.
No, not in China. I don't mean that. I just mean, well, the advent of AI, all you hear about now is everyone's going to be replaced, right? Mm-hmm. But are your chairs so bespoke that it requires hands on deck, or are there elements that could be taken and robots could be doing it?
Well, we do have automation. We have like CNC machines for the metal, for the wood. We do have a robot welder, but we also have welders. But again, the sewing, we have machinists that do the sewing. We have people who cut with hand. We have upholsterers who upholster. So a lot of it is hands-on, but we have automated as much as possible, at the minute. And we'll always look at that again. But we're quite happy the way it's working at the minute.
Yeah. And how many chairs are you roughly producing a week?
15 or 20.
Okay.
From start to finish. Yeah. And sometimes more if there's... See, that's what tack time is. It's for the demands of the customer. So say, for example, we have a container going to Australia. The tack time might be 15 minutes. So that day we might produce more chairs. But it's really in customer demand. So if we don't really need to have that chair out until next Monday, well then we'll put tack time down to 25 minutes so that people can have a more relaxed time. But it means that you have the ability then to speed that up if you need to. So it's customer demand.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And does your daughter have anything to do in the business?
My daughter has her bridal business. She owns a bridal boutique.
Okay.
And so at the minute, we have another business, manufacturing business. We acquired it last August, and she's now helping Ryan, the middle guy. She's helping him. So he's sort of moved out of Seating Matters temporarily anyway to set up and help. He really wanted the challenge of leaning out this company called Spur and Metal. So he is working on Spur and Metal. It's an old company, 50 years old. It has very processes weren't really very good. So he's putting all the lean processes in place. And Louise is helping him, my daughter, but she also has her bridal shop as well.
And I know your husband died a number of years ago.
He did. He died at 52, unfortunately.
Oh my God, what did he die from?
Cancer. Yeah.
Oh,
so that was, just when we were,
tough.
I know, just when we were really getting going. He died in 2014. And we were just getting out into America and Australia and places like that, at that time. So he didn't see it all, but he sees it now.
Aye, he does, of course.
So
that's so sad. Goodness me. Yeah. Life's tough, isn't it?
It is, because when you think we were the same age, so 52, you're sort of thinking now, when we get this all done, we'll do this X, Y, and Z. So that's something I've learned from that. Don't be putting off to do things. When
that's it. Have the holidays now, spend the time with each other now, rather than
although we did, having said that, we did have good holidays and good time together, but he was a workaholic. He did spend long hours at work, and even when he was ill, he built sheds and put down concrete and all for big, milking parlours and all. Even when he was ill, he was getting his treatment, and 3 times a week he'd go in for treatment. And one day he'd come home from treatment, and I walked out to our yard for something, and all these guys that worked for him were all there, and they were loading up a lorry with concrete skids. And I said, what's all this? And he says, and one looked at the other. Does she not know that we're starting a big job? And I come in, I was raging. And he had decided, no, he had had enough of treatment. He would take the treatment, but when he would come home, he'd get out to work. So when he was ill, I said, is there anything you would like to do now? Because we sort of, even though I'd never given that he was going to die, you sort of knew life had changed. He says, well, now what would I want to do? Only work. And that's all he wanted to do. Put the boots on and go to work.
So he was happy doing that.
He was happy. Yeah. Work was his thing.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. We did have good holidays as well, but we could have had more. And make up for it now.
Yes, well, I hope you do.
I do.
Mm-hmm. And is there anything else that you'd like to see is there anything else that you'd like to do within the occupational health space? Or do you think there's other ways that people can, I suppose, take the mantle and run with it? I feel that there's so much more that we can do for older people or for sick people. What would you like to see change?
I think it's all about education, and in order for things to change, you have to provide evidence to the powers that be. They have to see that there's evidence behind what we're saying, which we do all the time. We're always doing research, we're always doing education, and we are getting there. slowly and surely we are getting there. So I feel that my role is just this awareness. I've written that book called The Power of OT. OTs sometimes don't have enough confidence in their own profession, and I want them to speak out a bit more and stand up for themselves and for their clients and be advocates. And don't take no for an answer when somebody says no, we can't get that chair because it's too expensive. Know clinically why that person needs that and speak up for yourself. So I feel that I would like to see more awareness around that. And I know, when I'm talking about seating and everything, that's my passion. And there's somebody over here and their passion is, palliative care. And there's somebody over here and their passion is something. So, you have a lot of competition when it comes to health. So I have to make sure that what I'm saying is clinically researched, it's proper, that I can stand over what I'm saying, that I can make a difference. And we have proven this so much. So it's just really continuing that and just raising awareness.
And did you say you have another book coming out?
Well, I'm working on one, but haven't really decided yet.
Oh, okay. So you're not going to give away any secrets then, no?
Not yet.
Today?
Not just in case I don't do it. I've written one book about my life. So I've written one called The Stairway of My Life, and then I've written a book called The Power of OT. Of course, we've got a clinical book as well, a handbook, which we hand out to OTs just to raise awareness. It's the only seating handbook available at the minute. We're on about the 7th edition.
So this is just for OTs?
And nurses and anybody that is looking after a patient should actually read this clinician seating handbook. You can get it free from Seating Matters and read it and just see, the importance of seating and how we can help and how seating can help. So it's not just for OTs, it's for all healthcare. So that's what I would like to see, more awareness around that.
Yeah. I've learned loads. I really have.
Have you?
Yeah, no, I really have. It's just so very interesting how the importance of it, and it's just something that people don't think about.
No.
And also it's like people might think that there's no solution to seeing the slouched person in the chair, but there absolutely is.
Yeah. Just think about the person. Would you want to see, if that was your mother or your granny or somebody belonging to you, would you want to see them sitting like that? I mean, it's horrendous, some of the photographs. If you go on our website and see some of our before and after photographs, like, it's horrendous the way people are sitting. And it's just not dignified or not right.
Martina, what piece of advice would you give young people today?
Well, I'm trying to give this to my sons all the time and they never listen. Well, they don't listen that much, and my daughter. But what I would say is success is not a destination, it's a journey. And on that journey, you should be stopping and looking around you and taking time out. I think when you're young, and I did this as well, you were that busy doing things that you didn't actually take time to stop and appreciate what you've got and how far you've come, and appreciate your family, or appreciate the weather, or if you've got nice weather, even if it's raining, appreciate the rain. I think really young people need to slow down a wee bit, and especially now with social media and on phones, they're go all the time. And I'm always trying to say, slow down, take a wee minute out, go and have lunch with your wife, take your kids somewhere. I'm always trying to promote that, and especially in our family, because their father was such a worker that they sort of almost think that we have to keep working because Daddy was a worker. And I said, no, well, he might not just have been perfect. Like, he should maybe have spent more time at home or more time on holidays. So I think the advice I would give young people is to slow down a wee bit, look around them and appreciate how far they've come rather than always striving for more. Is that okay?
I'm listening to you here, and I'm actually trying to do that myself as well, and spending a little bit more time with the kids, taking a bit more time out of work, because you can just keep going and there's always something to bloody do.
I don't know who said it, and I looked it up one time, but somebody says, like, youth is wasted on the young. And it's true, because like, I'm now 63 and I realise how quick life goes on, and but nobody wants to listen to me saying that, because when you're 30-something, you think you've got your whole life ahead of you and you'll have time to do all that. But meanwhile, the kids are getting bigger, and the next thing they'll be driving a car and they'll be going away and they'll not want to come back and sit with you. So if you don't, there's a book called Being the Greatest, and there's a wee poem in it, and it said, listen to your children, listen to their laughter, and they will be there to listen to you. That's the thing, if you take time with your children now, well, then they'll have time for you when you get a wee bit older. And I've seen that over and over again when in my work as an OT out around the community, and seeing older people that had no time for their children when they were younger, they're sitting lonely. Whereas like my mother, it was just her children, her grandchildren. And when she came to me to live with me before she died for the last 6 weeks, she came to my house and she had 101 grandchildren and great-grandchildren.
Oh my goodness.
And every one of those came to my house to visit her for that 6 weeks. It was just an open door. It was just like a revolving door for 6 weeks. And every one of her grandchildren and every one of her own children, and not just her children, but her in-laws, people just came to her because she gave them time when she was well enough. So if you really want the payback, you have to put the work in now. That's what I think.
And that probably brings us nicely into what the meaning of life is then. What's the meaning of life, Martina?
Well, I've thought about this for years and years, especially since James died. I think when there's a big, event in your life like that, like James dying, so, I did wonder, like, what is this all about? Here we had a man who had so much to give. He had so much, and he was a very well-liked person, and people were devastated when he died because he had helped so many people. And I thought, well, why was he here? Like, what was the meaning of that? Is he just gone now? Is all that gone? And I couldn't accept that. So I did a lot of studying and a lot of reading and a lot of listening. And I came up with this, and this is what helps me anyway, the meaning of life for me. And it's about growth. So I think, that this is my belief, is that the larger part of us are spiritual. We're a spiritual person. The larger part of us is spiritual, and only a small part of us is actually physical. And that we were in the spiritual form long before we ever come into the physical form. So, and even in the Catholic Church, they'll say, always was and always will be, now and ever, amen. Like, you've always been here. There's always been a spiritual element. And for a period of time, you come into this physical body, right? And during that time that you're in that physical body, what you're meant to do is for growth. and development and to learn and to push the boundary and just explore. And then someday, whenever God or whoever it is that decides that you've learnt enough, you'll just transition into the spiritual world again. So for me, the meaning of life is about growth and about learning and about doing as much as you can while you're here, because you've only got this small opportunity and it's so minute in the large scheme of things. Even you live to 90, it's still only small. And just to make use of that time. And I said that to somebody one day and he says, well, what about the man lying on the street with a bottle of gin and the brown bag? Like, what contribution is he making to life? Like, what growth? And I says, he's there for a reason too. And the reason he's there is maybe for us to look at him with compassion. His purpose in life is to teach us something. Everybody's here to teach somebody else something or to grow. So you might think that that person is useless or not valuable, but that person's there and they are teaching us maybe and maybe motivate us to do something or motivate somebody. So I think everybody has a value and I believe that we're here to learn and grow. Like when my husband died at 52, you thought that was really early. And we have a really nice priest and he came and he put the readings out on the table, what readings you'd like. And he picked this one for James and it said, you know, old age is not grey hairs, it's wisdom. I don't know the exact words in the Bible, but it is old age is about wisdom. And people look on and think, oh, he died so young. But actually he had reached the end of what he needed to do here. He had reached his wisdom. And it's not grey hairs, it's not old age that makes a person wise, it's the years that they put in while they're here. So while you might look at a person at 35 or 40, and I've had young members of my family die, you know, I've had 2 nephews and a niece die in their 30s, and you look on, and as the Bible says, you look on wondering, why does this happen? But they have reached that part of their life where they have done everything they're meant to do in their physical body. So their wisdom comes from the years in this life, and I really believe that, and that consoles me and helps me when someone does die. It's still hard, it's still difficult, but at least I see that's the meaning of life.
Martina, what a lovely way to end. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This podcast episode is brought to you by the Brillo Cleaning Collection. Spring clean? Well, I'm not losing a whole weekend to that. I'm all about the quick wins. Open the windows, freshen things up, tackle the jobs winter left behind. And everyone in the house gets drafted in. There are no passengers. And that's why I'm loving Brillo's new cleaning collection. It's built for the toughest household tasks and makes the deep clean feel, well, wait for it, easy. Oven grime, shower limescale, kitchen grease, even drains, nothing turns into a big dramatic project. So this spring, you make the mess and let Brillo get the job done. Always follow preparation and usage instructions. Available nationwide.